Not only has 2024 brought a year of changes to the retirement planning landscape, but it's also the first year that Rockline Wealth Management has fully committed to bringing educational content to you, the viewer. Our hope is that we can make an impact on your road to and through retirement. Hey everyone, Gabe Galanti here, fiduciary financial advisor, CEO and owner of Rockline Wealth Management. And today we're bringing you our 2024 greatest hits of the most meaningful videos that we feel could have the biggest impact on your retirement planning process. As always, if you'd like to learn more about what we do and how we work with our clients, please feel free to click the link in the description or reach out via our website at www.rocklinewealth.com. Thank you very much for watching, and we hope you enjoy. According to an AARP survey conducted earlier this year, 1 in 5 Americans don't have any retirement savings at all. In addition to that, half of those surveyed do not feel confident that they have enough to make it all the way through retirement. So, as a major advocate of retirement planning and financial literacy, I'm super excited to bring to you today what I would consider to be the core group of retirement plans that might fit into your picture. So the first plan I want to talk about today is what I would consider probably one of the most common in being the 401k. The 401k is a retirement plan administered by employers for their employees. A few caveats to note here. Contributions are typically made on a pre-tax basis, meaning you receive a deduction on your income up front. The money will then grow tax deferred, and taxes will be paid on any withdrawals you make in retirement. In addition, some plans have a Roth feature, which allow you to make contributions after the money has already been taxed. Your earnings will grow tax-free, and then any withdrawals in retirement will be tax-free as well. With that, I have a few points to make you aware of. If you withdraw money prior to 59.5, you could not only face a 10% penalty, but if it's a pre-tax account, you will get taxed as well. You should also be aware of something called an RMD, or required minimum distribution. Currently, at age 73, if you are no longer working, you will be required to take a portion of money out of your 401k on a pre-tax basis, whether you need the money or not, which means taxes will hit. Now, let's talk about the IRA, or individual retirement account. This type of account is available to pretty much anybody that has earned income, whether your employer provides a plan or not. Similar to a pre-tax 401k, a traditional IRA will allow you to make contributions that will lower your income for the year, in addition to allowing your investment to grow on a tax-deferred basis until you take the money out in retirement. There's also the possibility that you might have more flexibility over your investment options within an IRA as opposed to your 401k. A few items to be aware of that may not seem so advantageous. First being, the contribution limits are dramatically lower than a 401k. In 2024, if you are under the age of 50, you can contribute up to $7,000 on the year, and you can add an additional $1,000 as a catch-up if you are over the age of 50. Secondly, there are income limits which could prevent you and your spouse from deducting the amount off of your income for the year. And last, RMDs, or required minimum distributions, apply here as well. Whether you're working or not, currently in 2024, at age 73, you are forced to take money out whether you need it or not. As with the 401k having both a pre-tax and Roth option, so does the IRA. So let's talk about a Roth IRA. One of the major points to consider when thinking about the Roth IRA is very similar to the Roth 401k, is that contributions are made with after-tax dollars, your earnings grow tax-free, and withdrawals in retirement are tax-free as well. Another potential positive is that there are no required minimum distributions with Roth IRAs, so your money seemingly could grow as long as you want. One last tidbit that I think could be useful is that you can actually withdraw your contributions to a Roth at any time completely penalty-free. As is typical, with positives come potential negatives that I'd like to talk about as well. The first thing that you should know is that if your income is too high, you may not be able to contribute to a Roth IRA. Also, similar to a Roth 401k, you do not get a deduction on your income with the upfront contributions. My last two plans are for those of you who are self-employed or run a small business. And here's where you're going to see that the contribution limits are much higher. First, the SEP IRA. With a SEP IRA, you can contribute up to 25% of your income, up to $69,000 for 2024, which is huge if you want to contribute in an aggressive manner. The contributions are completely funded by the employer, which is you, if you're self-employed. As far as cost and complexity, the SEP IRA is rather inexpensive and relatively easy to set up when compared to a 401k. Like the other pre-tax accounts, You'll receive a deduction on your income for the year based on contributions made. Your earnings will grow tax deferred, and you'll pay tax on the money when you take it out in retirement. And last is the solo 401k, an option for those of you that are self-employed with no employees. Some of the pros of a solo 401k include higher contribution limits. The contributions can come from both the employer and the employee, and you can contribute very similarly to a SEP at $69,000 per year for 2024. Next, a difference from the SEP is that you can also add a Roth feature. So if being able to contribute to a Roth is important to you, this could be a good choice to consider. Lastly, also different from a SEP, is that you can add in a loan feature, which allows you to take a loan up to $50,000 or 50% of your balance, whichever is less, over time. As always, I do want you to be aware of what could be considered a drawback of the solo 401k. When compared to the SEP IRA, setting up and managing a solo 401k could be a little more complex. It could require additional filings and paperwork, and therefore could have higher fees, again, when compared to a SEP. So there you have it. From employer-sponsored 401ks to IRAs to self-employment plans like SEP IRAs and solo 401ks, there are pros and cons to each. It's key that you speak to your financial and tax professionals to have a better understanding of which fits best in your overall plan. Have you ever thought about how much you can save if you just kept track of your expenses and spending? This is something we work with a ton of our clients on, no matter where they are in life or how much money they have. Today we're going to discuss some budgeting tips that I have found very helpful for myself and for clients over the years, and I hope you find them helpful as well. I believe this topic is super important when it comes to understanding your finances, setting a plan in action, and ultimately trying to achieve your goals. Whether it's saving for retirement, paying off debt, or just having a little extra cash in your pocket, budgeting can be an integral factor in helping you achieve all three. A common theme we see when working through a financial plan or putting together a budget is that we as people face challenges, no matter what income level or tax bracket. You may be used to your daily routine, then all of a sudden you get hit with something like medical bills, a broken car, or a housing expense. Although these situations tend to be stressful, there are budgeting strategies that you can utilize to help work through them. First things first, set clear goals. Do you have annual savings goals for retirement, or maybe saving for a home, or even paying off debt? Taking the time to write down your goals in the immediate, midterm, and long term can help you break down those thoughts so they're a little less overwhelming over time. Next, understanding and tracking your expenses can help you take your financial wellness to the next level. So often, we take the time to sit down with clients and they'll give us an understanding and an estimate of what their monthly expenses are. However, we do often find that they underestimate what these expenses are. A couple of categories that we see this happen very frequently in are grocery shopping, eating out, and gifting. Having a very clear outline list of your expenses on a month-to-month basis can help you feel more in control. After you've developed your list of goals and understand what your expenses are, it's time to put a plan of action in place. With that, I'd like to talk about the 50-30-20 rule. The big idea here is that you're going to allocate 50% of your income to your essential expenses, 30% of your income to your wants or discretionary expenses, and 20% of your income to your savings. This is going to allow you to cover your necessary expenses, live your life, and save for your future. Something that I really want to emphasize in today's discussion is paying yourself first. For me, as an example, the day that my paycheck arrives, I break my money out into multiple buckets. I first pay myself with money going into my retirement account, my 401k. I next have a portion of money that goes into my non-retirement investment account. And lastly, my money goes into a fully liquid savings account and money market. A method that I've personally found to be very effective is finding out what that savings number is and automate it. I enjoy this set it and forget it method because it allows me to clear my mind of additional stress and move forward and attack my goals. To recap quickly, there are 3 steps here. First, clearly define your goals in the immediate, medium term, and long term. Next, understand and accurately track your expenses. Lastly, develop a plan and execute. Does tax season make you feel like you're missing something? You're being given bad advice? Or you're getting the raw end of the deal? If so, you're not alone. Over the last 12 years, this is one of the main topics that we face when working with clients. The feeling of being completely lost or totally alone when it comes to how tax planning fits into their financial picture. Thankfully, we've been able to help an abundance of them with a few simple year-end tax planning strategies that I'm going to share with you today. So let's paint a picture. It's April, it's tax season again, and you're sitting on the edge of your couch waiting to hear from your accountant to see whether you owe taxes or not from last year. This brings me to tip number 1, which isn't technically a year-end tip, but more so a last-minute tip. If allowable, prior to the April tax deadline for taxes due the year earlier, consider contributing to an IRA or a traditional individual retirement account. In addition, also consider contributing to an HSA, a health savings account. A traditional IRA is a type of retirement account that could allow you to make contributions which could be tax deductible. Your investments will grow tax deferred, and later on in retirement, when you take the money out, you pay tax at that point. An HSA, a health savings account, is a type of account which allows you to make contributions pre-tax, and then the earnings and any monies used for qualified medical expenses come out tax-free. Tip number 2 may seem counterintuitive, but could be impactful nonetheless. You may have heard at some point in your life, X, Y, and Z billionaire makes a ton of money, yet pays no taxes. This head scratcher could leave you feeling a whole bunch of different emotions, but let me give you an example and explain how this is possible. The year was 2007. Which was one of the years that Amazon founder Jeff Bezos paid $0 in federal income tax. Despite Amazon's stock price, as well as Jeff Bezos' net worth rising dramatically, somehow he was able not to have to pay anything. As the story goes, Mr. Bezos was able to offset gains with losses from other investments, which brings me to tip number 2, and that is tax loss harvesting. Tax loss harvesting involves the practice of realizing losses over a period of time to potentially offset realized gains within the same calendar year. Even if your realized losses exceed your realized gains, you can still use up to $3,000 to offset income each year. This can act as a very powerful tool, and it's not just for the wealthy. The third strategy to consider has a very special place in my heart, and it includes giving back, which is something very important to me. As someone who's been positively impacted by many organizations and people over the course of my life, I made the commitment early on to try to reach back and bring others up with me. Whether it was through volunteering my time in my younger years or making more of a financial impact as I've grown older, giving back brings me tremendous fulfillment. With that, tip number 3 is to try to make charitable contributions prior to year end. Not only can they help you feel fulfilled, but there's also a chance that a portion of your contributions could be tax deductible as well. Something to note with this strategy is if you're at the age where you have to take RMDs or required minimum distributions, you should potentially consider QCDs, qualified charitable distributions. A QCD or qualified charitable distribution is when you take a portion of your money from your traditional individual retirement account and you pass it straight on to a charity. That contribution can go to offset a portion of your RMD, and it can also help lower your taxable income on the year. In 2024, the limit for a qualified charitable distribution is $105,000 per person. Imagine the impact that you can have in making a difference for a cause that you care about, and also potentially lighten up the tax burden for the year. Tip number 4 is a strategy that I want to speak about, as we've been seeing this a lot more commonly with the clients we work with. Let me introduce you to a hypothetical client named Sam. Sam worked very hard her entire life. She has saved up a bunch of money in her 401k, and she's now ready to retire. Sam's actually lucky enough that both her Social Security and her pension are enough to cover her expenses throughout her retirement years. And here's where it gets tricky. At a certain point, Sam is going to have to take RMDs or required minimum distributions from her retirement account. And based on certain projections, those numbers could become quite hefty and quite a tax burden over time. Something that we'd educate Sam on and team up with her accountant to have the discussion is to consider tip number 4, which is a Roth conversion. By gradually converting her traditional or pre-tax retirement money, Sam can gradually spread out the tax burden and potentially make a more predictable tax scenario for her future. It's a strategy that requires careful planning, but can also come with long-term benefits. And finally, tip number 5 is something super straightforward, but you would be shocked at how many people overlook this. Back in the 70s, when inflation was running rampant, Congress passed the Revenue Act of 1978. This allowed for the creation of the Defined Contribution Plan, or some common types that you might know, like the 401k or 403b. Fast forward to today, and we find that the defined contribution plan is among the most popular ways to save for retirement. And typically, a pre-tax account is something that would allow you to lower your taxable income on the year. With that, tip number 5, if your lifestyle permits, is to make sure that prior to year end that you max out your retirement contribution to your employer retirement plan. If you can afford to do so, make sure that you're contributing the maximum amount that you can to your employer's plan, as this money goes in pre-tax and it can lower your taxable income on the year. Should you pay off your mortgage before you retire? It's a goal for many, but it's not a one-size-fits-all answer. Over the last 12 years, I've had the opportunity to work with hundreds of families on their retirement planning. And a lot of times we come across the question of whether or not someone should or shouldn't pay off their mortgage before retirement. So today, I want to talk to you about some of the pros and cons, as well as some of the mixed strategies that I've seen over time. And be sure to listen to the end, where I'm going to share an insight which I think might be a game changer for those of you trying to come up with an answer to this predicament. First things first, I'd like to address some of the top reasons that I hear pre-retirees might be motivated to pay off their mortgage before they retire. The first situation is just simply freeing up cash flow. Paying that mortgage off to free up an extra couple of $100 up to a couple of $1,000 a month could be a game changer in retirement. This money can be used for anything you want. You might want to put it towards discretionary expenses like travel and hobbies, or you might just want to save a little more. The second reason is peace of mind. Knowing that you own your property outright and you do not owe a bank or lender any additional monies. After hearing these situations from clients, it's then up to me to try to figure out what makes the most sense and what is in a client's best interest. With that, I want to share how my mind navigates these problems. The first question I ask, very simply, is what is the rate that you're paying on the mortgage? For the purposes of this example, let's use the number of 7%. So if you're paying the mortgage and your rate is 7%, and you take a hunk of money to pay down the mortgage in full, you're effectively earning a 7% return on your money. If this is comforting to you, it may make sense. Another reason it may make sense is if you have a variable rate mortgage and you think that interest rates are going to move higher over time. Paying the mortgage off prior to seeing those rates move higher could help you save money in the long haul, which you could use again on things that you enjoy. Although you might be sitting here right now thinking, wow, that makes a lot of sense. Maybe I should pay my mortgage off. I ask that you listen just a little while longer to see some of the scenarios where it might not make so much sense. Something I always speak to clients about, depending on their level of risk, is how comfortable they are as far as their cash reserves are concerned. When budgeting in a simple manner, you might say that it's common practice to keep at least 6 months in cash reserves. Working further with planning on our clients, we do find sometimes that there are some clients which prefer to keep much more cash on hand than that, and others that feel that the liquidity provided by their investment accounts is more than enough for them. I start my point by explaining that in theory, although you might feel more comfortable in thinking that paying off the mortgage in full is a great idea, when doing so, you might adversely affect your overall cash reserve, which could bring about additional fears. Having all your money tied up in the equity of your house might not allow you to feel as comfortable as having all of that money liquid in the bank. Another reason that you might not want to accelerate paying down your mortgage has to do more so with investments and retirement. As we discussed prior, something to take into consideration is the rate of interest that you're paying on the mortgage versus the potential rate of interest that you're earning on your money. For example, let's say we're in a very low interest rate environment and you have a mortgage locked in at 2.5%. If you have assets that are invested that are earning dramatically more than that, then it may make sense to continue investing. There are a few factors to take into consideration with a situation like this, including calculating the after-tax return on your investments, as well as the deductibility of your mortgage. And for that reason, I'm going to recommend that you speak to your accountant. With regards to retirement, if you find that you have excess cash flow at the end of every month, it might make sense to increase your retirement account contribution, providing you're allowed to do so. Quick note to remember, for those of you over the age of 50 contributing to a retirement account, you can actually pack away more via the catch-up contribution. Now, aside from saying, should I pay it down all at once or should I not, we do have situations where you might come across different strategies that you could use right down the middle. I've personally seen a few different methods used as a combination to accelerate payments to the mortgage, as well as continuing to invest money down the road. Strategies such as increasing the amount of payments you're putting towards the mortgage, or even increasing the amount per payment, can help you pay down the mortgage faster. Also, remaining disciplined and understanding that that's your goal, using any additional sporadic monies that you might come across over time to pay down that balance. As I mentioned earlier, I do want to share an insight with you that I find can be crucial in trying to make this decision. The biggest overarching factor to keep in mind here, as far as this situation is concerned, is that everything is dynamic or constantly moving. There's not one perfect answer, so don't get down on yourself for not being able to decide which situation might be best for you. There are factors which would be considered quantitative, like the rate of interest you're paying on the mortgage versus the rate of return you're receiving on your investments, or factors that are qualitative, like how much you value feeling that liquidity in your bank account versus keeping all of your money packed away inside the equity of your home. Working through this process may be a bit time consuming, but it can absolutely have an impact when coming up with your overall plan. Have you ever wondered if you could afford to own a second home while preparing for retirement or even in retirement? Well, over the last 12 years, this has been a hot topic of conversation with dozens of our clients. And today I want to talk to you about some of the positives, some of the negatives, and just some things to be aware of overall when it comes to owning a second home, whether it's again up to or in retirement. So picture this. You're a few years away from retirement. You've saved up what seems to be a bunch of money. If you have children, they're now grown and independent, and you are looking to enjoy the fruits of your labor. You may currently own a second home, or you're considering purchasing one in the not too distant future. This home could be a part-time residence, maybe a full-time residence, a vacation home, or even a rental while you're not using it. Whatever the case may be, it's imperative to understand all of the situations surrounding owning a second home. So first, let's talk about some of the pros. The first positive aspect of owning a second home might actually be one of the most fulfilling. In society today, where everybody is connected through social media and the internet, it's pretty darn tough to figure out how to escape and get away. The need to disconnect, unplug, or get off the grid seems to be increasing on a daily basis. Having a place where you can escape and recharge can be a game changer for your life. And that is the first positive aspect of owning a second home near or in retirement. It may be living somewhere sentimental, or it may be living somewhere that you've always dreamed of. Either way, the potential benefits, both physically and mentally, can be tremendous. The next positive aspect might be able to offset the increased expenses that come with owning a second home, or even potentially boost up your financial standing in retirement. Small hint for you here. Brian Chesky co-founded a company that eventually went public and makes this process a heck of a lot easier than it once was. If you don't know who Brian Chesky is, he co-founded a multi-billion-dollar business called Airbnb. And the second potential positive of owning a second home in retirement is the fact that you have the option, if you'd like when you're not using it, to rent it out. It's estimated that 25 to 35% of the 9 million second homes in the United States are rented out on an annual basis. The last positive aspect I see regularly is a bit more spiritual in nature, and I'm going to use myself as the example for this one. Growing up, a few times a year we would visit my great aunt's house in Pennsylvania. We would go there for things like family reunions, or picking apples, or even just some of the most fun times I've ever had in the snow. What I realized as time passed on is that Aunt Isabel's house gave us a place to all come together as a family and make memories. And so the last positive thing that is associated with owning a second home is that it allows you to leave a legacy and bring your family together. With all of these positives, there are also a few not so amazing points that I'd like to hit on as well. Anyone that has owned a house can probably attest to encountering unexpected expenses and experiences that come along with home ownership over time. Being that one of the main pain points in retirement is avoiding unexpected expenses, it's important that we discuss the potential for this here as our first point of caution, and one of the negatives of potentially owning a second home is that unexpected expenses may occur over time. As we know, costs can add up quickly, which can mean double the expenses as far as mortgages, HOA fees, taxes, repairs, maintenance, etc. And let's not forget a big expense such as a whole new HVAC system, windows, or a roof. Next is something that might not be so top of mind for many, but seems to be particularly true across the board through our conversations. Aside from the unknown expenses and situations that could occur in owning a second home, the known added expenses can become burdensome as well. For instance, if you need to utilize a loan on your second home, mortgage lenders might charge you a higher rate as they deem that to be more risky than a primary residence. The last downside I want to bring up when it comes to owning a second home in retirement is one that we speak about quite frequently as well, and that is the feeling of insecurity when you're not at the home. Hopefully you live in a nice neighborhood where you have neighbors or somebody that can watch your property while you're not there, but the lack of control and the feeling of that being present in life can be a distraction for you when you're in retirement. Now that we've covered some of these pros and cons, I want to pass on a couple of quick tips that I've observed over the years. First things first, although you might be eager to figure out when and where you want to buy your second home and understand that you're able to financially do so, try to avoid that feeling of missing out, and maybe potentially consider renting over the course of a couple of years in different areas to figure out where is the best place and ideal location for you. Next, make sure to consult an attorney and have the conversation to see if it makes sense to wrap the house in an LLC or a trust for protection. And lastly, if you're making the decision to move to a low or no income tax state, please keep in mind that you must be living there for at least 183 days out of the year in order for that to count for tax purposes. So, is owning a second home a good idea in retirement? Ultimately, the decision is yours. One final tidbit here is to ensure that your financial plan and your financial orders are in place. Working through the process with your trusted professional and figuring out exactly what your expenses are, where your income is going to come from, what your income will be, and how much you can afford and have wiggle room to work with in retirement is imperative. The last thing that you want to do is embark on this journey, which could bring so much joy to your life, and have to end it prematurely. After countless hours in client meetings and on phone calls, I want to go over with you today what I see as some of the most substantial potential mistakes as far as investments are concerned. With technology more present than ever, we are seeing behaviors evolve over time that could take someone off their path. Today, I'm going to break down for you some of the stuff that I see so you could potentially avoid these investment mistakes in the future. The number one thing that I see that leads people to making mistakes over time is not having a clear plan in place. I know, as far as my life is concerned, if I don't set goals and I don't have a clear vision, I tend to experience some pretty mediocre outcomes. It's important not only to define your goals, but to understand how much risk you want to take and how much time you have to accomplish what you want to achieve. These steps can help you break down bigger goals into smaller goals, which can further help you create a plan of action to get where you want to go. A few of the issues that we tend to see when there's not a clearly defined plan in place include emotional investing, trying to time the markets, and chasing performance. These three behaviors can lead to buying high and selling low, which is the exact opposite of what we would like to do. This further reinforces that having a plan in place can certainly help. The second thing that I've seen many times that leads to investment mistakes is a lack of patience. A lack of patience can do a few things, not allowing your investment thesis to properly play out over time, including increased trading frequency and potentially falling for investment scams in hope of outsized performance. When it comes to these two scenarios, patience is imperative. Nothing good in life comes easy. That includes your personal goals, your family goals, and even your investment goals. Patience is paramount. The last thing that I see that can lead to investment mistakes over time is just completely neglecting your portfolio overall. Some people get very anxious and overwhelmed when thinking about money and investments, but when you're not looking at what you have going on, issues can arise. Whether you're paying excessive fees, maybe you have tax inefficient investments in a taxable account, or even growing outsized positions and taking on too much risk. It's important to pay attention to your portfolio over time, and if you don't want to do it, to work with a professional that'll help do it for you. I personally like to focus on the things that I can control in life. And although we can't necessarily control where the markets are going to go or what investor behavior is going to take place, we can have a focus on what fees we're paying, owning tax-efficient investments in taxable accounts, and understanding the amount of risk that we're willing to take on. Are you ready for the changes coming to retirement savings accounts, Social Security income, and Medicare for 2025? Understanding these updates could potentially provide opportunity for your retirement strategy. Over the last 12 years, I've had the pleasure of working with hundreds of clients on their retirement, and today I'm going to talk to you about some upcoming changes for retirement accounts, Social Security income, and Medicare for 2025. First, I want to talk about one of the biggest changes for those of you who are in your early 60s. If you're between the ages of 60 and 63 in 2025, you now have an opportunity to catch up on your retirement savings in a more substantial way. So what's the deal, you might ask? Well, starting in 2025, for those of you between the ages of 60 and 63 can now make a catch-up contribution of the greater of $10,000 or 150% of the original catch-up contribution. This opportunity gives you more of a chance to save in your retirement account than ever before. To give you an idea, let's look at a couple of examples. In 2024, the contribution limit to a 401k or 403b is $23,000. In addition, the catch-up is currently $7,500 if you're over the age of 50. That brings your total for the year to $30,500. 5 years back, in 2019, the contribution limit for a 401k and 403b was $19,000, plus a catch-up of an additional $6,000 for those of you 50 and over. Now, take a look back 10 years to 2014, when the contribution limit was $17,500, and the catch-up for those 50 and over was $5,500, bringing your total to just $23,000. Now, let's talk about 401k and 403b auto enrollment. Beginning in 2025, 401k and 403b plans established after December 28, 2022 will be required to automatically enroll their employees in their respective plans. The idea behind this change is to help people start saving for retirement earlier and more often without even having to think about it. Let's take a look at an example. Employees will automatically be enrolled in their plan starting at a contribution rate of 3% of their salary, with an escalation of 1% a year up to no more than 10% of their compensation during the first 5 years of the plan. It's important to note that if you're a participant that falls under this new rule, you can always opt out if you don't feel comfortable. For those of you using simple IRAs, please understand that there's an update here for you too. In 2024, the simple IRA catch-up contribution for those of you over the age of 50 is $3,500, bringing the total contribution for the year to $19,500. But starting in 2025, those of you between the ages of 60 and 63 can now contribute $5,000 or 150% of the original catch-up. Now let's talk about a key change impacting inherited IRAs. For those of you that are not aware, if you inherited an IRA on January 1, 2020 or later, you'll now be required as a non-spouse to take a required minimum distribution each year over a 10-year period to ultimately empty out the account. Although previous guidance alluded to the fact that this would be final ruling, if you have not taken an RMD in each of the years between 2020 and 2024, that penalty will be waived. This new rule replaces the previously used stretch IRA strategy, where non-spouse beneficiaries were able to stretch the IRA withdrawals over the course of their lifetime. With that, surviving spouses, minor children, beneficiaries within 10 years of the age of the decedent, or beneficiaries who are chronically ill may still use the stretch IRA strategy. As I alluded to before, and I want to reinforce, it is crucial to understand that there could be penalties going forward for not taking your RMDs from an inherited IRA. Currently, that amount stands at 25% of the amount that you were supposed to withdraw. There is one caveat. If you are to correct that mistake within a 2-year time period or a timely manner, that amount of penalty should reduce from 25% down to 10% of the value you're supposed to withdraw. Now, let's talk about Social Security changes in 2025, and 3 in particular that I feel are important to know. First, the cost of living adjustment, or COLA, for Social Security income is going to be an increase of 2.5% for the year. Yes, this number is a bit smaller when compared to 2024, but inflation has eased since then. Next up, we've got full retirement age. In 2025, full retirement age is going to be 66 years and 10 months for those of you born in 1959. If you were born in 1960 or later, full retirement age will be 67 years old. Just remember, if you start taking Social Security before your full retirement age, your benefit will be reduced. And last but not least, let's discuss the wage cap for next year. In 2024, the wage cap is currently $168,600, and next year in 2025, the wage cap is going to increase to $176,100 to account for inflation. This means if you're a high earner, more of your income is going to be taxed for Social Security. Now, let's talk about Medicare in 2025. First, there's a new $2,000 cap on out-of-pocket expenses for prescriptions for those of you enrolled in Medicare Part D. This is what I believe is going to be a significant relief to people that have high prescription costs currently. In addition, You can spread these costs out throughout the year as opposed to paying them all at once. Second, Medicare Advantage plans are now going to be required to send out notices mid-year to policyholders to inform them if there are any unused benefits as far as supplemental benefits are concerned. And this will include things like vision, dental, and hearing. This way, you can ensure that you're taking full advantage of all of the benefits that you're entitled to. And finally, Medicare sales rules are changing too. The government's going to be cracking down on incentives given to agents who sell Medicare Part D as well as Medicare Advantage plans. This is meant to ensure that beneficiaries are being advised in their best interest and not just so agents can earn a commission. As I said earlier, understanding these updates could potentially present an opportunity to update your retirement strategy. What if I told you that the order in which your investment returns occurred could have a major impact on your retirement? Well, today I'm going to talk to you about one of the most overlooked potential risks to retirement planning, as well as 3 strategies that you might be able to implement to combat it. Over the last 12 years, I've personally worked with hundreds of clients on their retirement plan, and today I want to speak about a risk that is often overlooked: sequence of return risk. In addition, I also want to talk about 3 strategies that you could potentially implement to combat it. So, what exactly is sequence of return risk, you might ask? It's the risk that the order in which you experience investment returns through the course of retirement could potentially negatively impact your plan. Let's take a quick look. In this example, we have 2 retirees. They both achieve the same overall rate of return over time and start with the same amount of money. In this instance, $600,000 each. In addition, they both withdraw $25,000 per year for 5 years. Here is investor's A rate of return, where he starts during a bull market, and here is investor's B rate of return, where he starts during a bear market. For the people that don't know, a bull market is where returns are positive over the course of time, as opposed to a bear market where the rate of return is negative over the course of time. So investor A starts off with positive returns and then moves towards negative returns, and investor B starts off with negative returns and turns towards positive returns, the exact opposite of investor A. Even with a substantial loss in year 5, because of the early gains that investor A experienced, he ends up with this much. Whereas investor B's situation being the opposite, starting off with negative returns, he ends up with this much. So now that we've seen an example of the type of impact that sequence of returns can have on a portfolio, let's talk about some of the strategies that might be able to help mitigate these risks. The first strategy I want to discuss reminds me of a rather well-known company, Apple. For those of you that don't know, Apple is one of the largest technology companies in the world. It was founded in 1976, and the co-founders were Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and Ronald Wayne. They started off in the computer space and almost immediately launched the Macintosh in 1984. Unfortunately, a short time later, co-founder Steve Jobs departed the company, and almost simultaneously, they went on to start to lose market share to competitors. Fast forward to 1997, when Steve Jobs returns to Apple and sets them on a more sustainable path for growth. He led the charge in multiple areas like design and innovation, and also helped streamline the processes that were already in place. By focusing on simplicity and sustainability, Steve Jobs was able to bring the company back on track. You might wonder what in the world this has to do with sequence of returns risk, so I'm going to tell you. Developing a plan for retirement that is simplified and streamlined can help you avoid some of the risks that you might face. I'm a big believer in keeping things simple and streamlined, and this can be especially helpful when working through moments of life that could bring on stress to you. The next strategy that I want to speak about is very important, not only when talking about sequence of return risk, but also when talking about investments in general. It might be safe to assume that you are very familiar with, and maybe even have a package waiting from them on your doorstep. The company's name is Amazon. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, Amazon was very well known for being an online bookstore. And although it did expand into other retail areas, it remained very dependent on the success or failure of e-commerce. And, as with many things in the economy, the success or failure of a company can rely heavily on the strength or weakness of the consumer. Through the course of Amazon's growth, they had experienced multiple downturns, including the tech bubble of 2000 and the housing crisis of 2008, to name a couple. Staying vigilant and aware that these turns in the economy could occur, Amazon was forced to make change in developing other lines of business such as Amazon Web Services, Amazon Prime, and Amazon Devices. These three business segments, among many others, allowed Amazon to move forward and even expand through the peaks and troughs of the economy over time. This is a great example as to another strategy to potentially combat sequence of return risk, and that is diversifying your investments. Diversification may allow for a smoother ride and allow you to withstand volatility over the course of time. My final strategy to combat sequence of return risk brings to mind none other than 7-time Super Bowl winning champion Tom Brady. For those of you that don't know, Tom Brady was drafted in the year 2000 by the New England Patriots in the 6th round, and he was far from what would be considered a top prospect. And although, at the time, it seemed like Tom had no chance of earning the starting position, he was well known for his tenacity and dedication to the practice field as if he was a championship caliber type player. Sure enough, in the 2001 season, then starting quarterback Drew Bledsoe went down to injury. Tom stepped up to the plate when his number was called and ultimately brought the Patriots to win a Super Bowl that year. Former Patriots offensive coordinator Charlie Weis once noted that even after Brady's 3rd Super Bowl, he was still known to get to the stadium before many others and practice hard as anyone in the offseason. Tom went on to win 6 Super Bowls with the New England Patriots, and after leaving, won a 7th Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is a clear story which paints a picture as to a strategy to combat sequence of return risk here, and that is preparation. Abe Lincoln once said, "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I'll spend the first 4 sharpening the axe." Preparation can make a world of difference in giving yourself a chance at success. Do you make too much to contribute to a Roth IRA? In 2024, if you are single, the modified adjusted gross income limit starts at $146,000 of annual income and phases out completely at $161,000 of annual income. If you're married and filing jointly, the modified adjusted gross income limit starts at $230,000 of annual income and phases out completely at $246,000 of annual income. Too much income may put your Roth IRA contribution plans on pause. However, there are strategies such as a backdoor Roth conversion, which could allow you high-income earners to make a Roth contribution each year. First, I want to give you a quick recap of the pros and cons of the Roth IRA. First, for the pros of the Roth IRA. Number 1, your contributions grow tax-free. Number 2, your withdrawals are tax-free. Number 3, there are no required minimum distributions associated with a Roth IRA. And number 4, upon inheriting this money, your heirs and beneficiaries will not be required to take out income that is taxable over their lifetime. And to be fair, a couple of things to be aware of when it comes to Roth IRA contributions. Number 1, unfortunately, there is no tax deduction for the money contributed. And number 2, there's a 5-year waiting period from the date of opening the account before you can make withdrawals. Shifting back to the backdoor Roth conversion, for those of you who are not familiar, the process is as follows. First, you're going to open a traditional IRA, you're going to make a non-deductible contribution to that account, and then you are immediately going to convert that account to Roth. An important consideration when implementing this strategy is that although there are no taxes due on the money that is contributed and then converted, any earnings on the contribution prior to converting will then have taxes owed at that date of conversion. As always, remember, educating yourself over time and working with a team of professionals can help you have great outcomes. Depression, anxiety, and loneliness. Not words that you would typically find associated with a moment of happiness and success. Today, I want to talk to you about 4 strategies that you can use to hopefully maintain your happiness to and through retirement. So imagine this. You've worked your whole life, you've saved to retire, you've paid off all your debts, now you're getting ready to make the move, and you start feeling depressed. Unfortunately, this trend is something that we've seen in working with clients and prospects over the years, and it's more common than you might think. If I hadn't witnessed it firsthand time and time again, I would not believe it myself. But when you think about it, such a major change in mindset and lifestyle can bring on a multitude of feelings and beliefs. Although sometimes overlooked, having structure in the workday, building relationships, and having purpose can become a foundation of our life. Thankfully, I've had the opportunity to guide hundreds of families to and through retirement through the course of my career. Something that I think many of us can relate to is that as we progress in life, however you might define progress, whether that's growing a family or becoming more deeply committed to your career, we have less time to do the things that we once loved. Even if we're phenomenal schedulers, naturally, as you commit more time to your career and other things going on in life, you have less time to dedicate to the things that you like. I personally used to be completely obsessed with sports. I seemingly knew every statistic of every athlete that I wanted to all year round. As my career progressed and I got married and started working towards having children, unfortunately, my love and passion and focus on sports took a backseat. Sometimes going years and years without dedicating time to these passions can even help you forget that they existed in the first place. With that, my first strategy to help you maintain happiness in retirement is to reconnect with yourself and the things that you once loved to do. Piggybacking off that, my next strategy is equally as impactful, but could be considered dramatically more important. The list of things that we neglect over time with a busy career is frightening when you take a step back and look at it. Things like relationships, personal growth, and even yourself holistically. The irony of this is that all of these things help us as humans to feel happy and fulfilled over time. Having all of your bases covered can not only help you feel good about yourself, but also help you be more present and focused on those that love you and those that are around you. My second strategy to help you maintain happiness up to and through retirement is something that a bunch of us throw out the window, and that is to exercise and eat healthy. I've personally experienced many times in life where my weight has fluctuated due to stress. Moments of stress and uncertainty over time are what seems to bring on the weight fluctuations in my case. What I can tell you undoubtedly is that every time I put focus and effort into cleaning up my diet and stay on a strict workout regimen, that I have felt amazingly better. So again, in short, strategy number 2 is to exercise and eat healthy. With regards to my next strategy, I have to tell you that one of the most common reasons that clients and prospects come to us over time is because they have some sort of doubt as far as their financial situation leading up to retirement. In an ideal world, we'll end up working with a prospect through our financial planning process to help them meet their goals. In doing this practice tends to relieve the client and prospect of a fair amount of stress. And so my third strategy here is create a financial plan. Creating a financial plan can help bring peace of mind and help you feel more in control of your finances and your overall financial picture. The earlier you begin the process, the more opportunity you have to make potential changes as time goes on. My last strategy might actually surprise you here because this is where many people tend to fail. First, I want you to think back to the days of your childhood. A typical day, in a very broad sense, would consist of waking up, eating breakfast, going to school, coming home, eating dinner, and going to bed. Fast forward to your adult life, where things look pretty similar. However, you switch out going to school with going to work. The commonality here is that in both cases, and through the majority of our lives, we've built a routine, and that is strategy number 4. Having a routine not only helps you feel a sense of comfort, but it can also help you feel a sense of achievement as you move through your day and complete task after task. Being that you no longer have the hours of the day that you might have been spending at work, you'll naturally have a gap of time. I've personally seen what I would consider to be incredible results by those who intentionally block out periods of their day. The bottom line here is that you have followed a routine for the majority of your life, and so to continue those habits into retirement can be a major help. If nothing more, it might actually help you wake up refreshed and happy the next day. Overall, among my 4 strategies, I thoroughly believe that removing any bit of uncertainty can help you to feel happy and achieved and successful to and through your retirement. What if I told you it's estimated that 70% of the time, generational wealth is lost from one generation to the next, and 90% of the time, that money is gone by the 3rd generation? It's a very disheartening statistic, but what we find is that the generation that created the wealth was often so focused on generating it, preserving it, and growing it over time that they neglected to prepare the next generation for the responsibility that was about to come to them. So many of the families that we work with list passing on the legacy that they've created as one of their highest priorities. The harsh reality is that maintaining, preserving, and passing on money from one generation to another is one of the most difficult challenges that there are. Some of the hurdles that we commonly see include a lack of communication, where the parents and the initial generation don't take the time to explain their plans to pass the money to the next generation. A conflict among heirs, where the heirs might disagree who deserves what, which causes issues. Or even just mismanagement, where you see that next generation is not mentally prepared to take on the responsibility. They might not be financially savvy and end up spending all of the money, or they could even be influenced by outside sources, getting taken advantage of, and that money will disappear very quickly. In the grand scheme of things, we do our best to communicate to clients that generational planning is not just about creating an estate plan. It's also about preparing the next generation with the values and financial literacy they need to carry your legacy forward. Inheritance is as much about parenting as it is about money management. Estate planning, although great when it comes to transferring wealth, does nothing to prepare the next generation for what's about to come to their lives. First-generation wealth creators often think that their values and legacy and beliefs will be carried on to the next generation automatically, but we find that this is often not the case at all. The truth is, every generation has grown up in a very different world than the one prior. Without the right preparation, they might lack the drive and resilience that built that wealth in the first place. If you have a six-figure portfolio or hundreds of millions of dollars, the principles remain the same. It's imperative to prepare your heirs financially, morally, and intellectually. Now, I want to make a pivot, and I want to talk about steps that we take with clients to avoid this generational wealth trap. First things first, you have to clear your mind and stop thinking that talking about money is weird. Be open, communicate, hold family meetings, and answer any questions that your heirs might have. Next, whether you decide to formally structure these meetings or hold them loosely, talk to your heirs about the values and the hard work and effort that you put in and the legacy that you want to leave behind when you're gone. It's important to allow them to share their feelings so they can build motivation of their own to keep the legacy going forward. Third, and potentially one of the most important steps here, introduce them to your team. Allowing your heirs to meet the team that helped you build what you've built, whether it's your financial advisor, your accountant, or your attorney, can work wonders. It is multiple other sets of eyes, ears, and mouths to communicate your legacy and values to your heirs, and who knows, it could help them along the way with their own personal growth. One last thing, get started early. Teach your children from a young age the importance of saving, spending, and the importance of giving over time. If there's something that I want you to take away from this discussion here today, it's that this process is about intentional, multi-generational wealth transfer. And that starts from the early age of when your children are born, not when you die. Your legacy is not just what you leave behind. Most importantly, it's what you pass forward. If you're looking for tax strategy straight from the mouth of an accountant, I'm excited to tell you that earlier this week I had the opportunity to sit with Nicholas Corbisiero of Corbisiero Consulting Services, and we're bringing you some of the top strategies to consider implementing before year end. Nick, thank you very much for joining us today. As year end approaches, we wanted to speak about some pressing tax tips, and I think who better than to speak about it than you. So very appreciative, and I guess we'll hop right in. So without further ado, I would like to ask the first question, Nick. As far as year end coming up, what would you say are some of the most pressing issues that you face right now, or that the advice that you're giving to clients?
Right. One of the first things that I always recommend, year end's coming to a close, so the new hot topic is the BOI filings. That's something that's due by the last day of the year. If you have a business that started up before January 1st, 2024, any new businesses that started in 2024 only have about 90 days to file. If they don't file, it's a $591 penalty per month. So it's something I recommend everybody talk to their accountant or attorney, anybody who's had a business set up. Definitely reach out and talk to them. There's only one thing worse than giving the government money is giving them extra money. So let's keep it in our pockets for a change. And that's hands down the number one topic. And then the rest is just what are the other moves that you're doing before year end? Are you talking to your advisor, your financial advisor, your accountant, and seeing what else is out there? Tax planning is huge. Let's keep more money in our pockets to invest and protect our future.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, that's very important, the BOI, and I'm sure there's a plethora of things that we can hit on here today.
Yep.
from an individual standpoint, what would you say are your top tips that somebody can do either before year end or before they file their taxes come next year for this year?
Yep. So one of the first things I always talk to a client about is where's their income stand at the end of the year. Now, we still have 6 weeks roughly left to address where's our income. Do we have enough withholding? Do we need to make an estimate tax payment to avoid penalties and so on? Once again, same theory. Why give the government extra money if we don't have to? Penalties is just a waste of money. Are we looking at our withholdings to see what we have to adjust for next year? A lot of people forget once they think the new year starts, it's business as usual. It's not. Withholding schedules change, and if you don't address it with your payroll, your employer, then you could set yourself up for another problem in the future.
Excellent. Thank you. Are there, from a charitable standpoint, are there any moves that people can make at this time? Are we nearing any type of special deadlines, or is there anything that that might be beneficial?
So depending on if they itemize and so on, are they doing that? If they have any kind of trusts or any kind of retirement planning, if they don't want to take the money, they can make donations to various charities. Once again, plenty of different options out there. One of the biggest things I tell everyone to do is if you have any items around your house that you're looking to get rid of, now's the perfect time to donate it. Make sure you get a signed and dated receipt. So if you do itemize, you could actually take that as a tax deduction, possibly help you out, lower your tax liability.
Awesome. Thank you. So I know something very popular that we hear clients talking about on a regular basis is the electric cars, solar, et cetera, et cetera. Nick, can you please share with us some of the ideas that you have and maybe some of the planning strategies that you implement with your clients around those things?
Right. So with solar, the cost of the solar equipment is deductible. You get a 30% credit. So as long as the work's done by the end of the year, I would highly recommend, if you're going to think about it, to run out and kind of talk to a company. And at the same time, most companies will try to sell you a new roof. The roof is not a tax deduction. It specifically says that in the IRS code. So, but I do encourage them that if they're going to decide to put a battery backup in, now's the time to do it, because the battery backup would qualify when you're putting the solar in your home. Also think about a solar charger possibly for an electric car and so on. There's other credits along with that for the charging unit and so on that may be available to the clients if they qualify.
Thank you. Something on our end of the table as far as some of the advice and guidance that we give clients with tax planning through the year is realizing gains and losses, trying to offset them. Do you have any special advice as far as this is concerned? Do you see it as something frequently that comes up for you?
100%. So once tax season starts, it's almost too late. So what we advise our clients is to do some tax planning. You normally, the day after Thanksgiving, a lot of clients get an email from me reaching out to them saying, should we do any last minute tax planning? Where do we stand? Has anything changed? Do you have a lot of gains on the year? Is there any losses that we should talk to your advisor about utilizing? Or if not, and you don't have the losses, great, you had a great year. We may need to pay some estimate taxes on that additional income. But if it's been a bad year and there's lots of losses, we may want to take them and use them now. So this way we'll have them carrying forward to the future.
Great. Thank you. Something that we've spoken about a lot frequently with Nick and his methods is planning, proactive planning along the way throughout the year. And I think that's so super important for not only for individuals, obviously for business owners as well, in that you want to be planning for the future. You can't necessarily sit here and be reactive to the situation as far as taxes are concerned. You should be proactive. And with that, Nick, are there any special retirement plans that you can implement as far as business owners are concerned, whether you're a solo business owner individual or if you have a company, anything that you want to hit on there?
Right. So any of the self-employed individuals, people who have their own businesses or just a 1099, we always talk to them about either an IRA contribution, solo 401k, a SEP IRA, Maybe a defined benefit plan. Different options are out there, but if you don't have that initial conversation, it's almost too late. Some of the plans we know has to be set up prior to filing your tax return. And some people have them, or maybe have an old plan that they haven't used in a while, but still there and active. So it gives us some flexibility on that. I'm a big believer in put the money away, and even though you can't touch it for a while, put it into your future. Once you give it to the government, it's gone forever. You're never going to see it again.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, pay yourself first. Pay yourself first, and I would like to also bring up a strategy that we like to explore. It might not be right for everybody, but Nick, what are your thoughts on the Roth conversion?
So any client of ours who has any kind of significant money saved in any kind of IRA or in retirement account, and they have a bad year, they're unemployed, decide to take a year off, a sabbatical, and so on, we currently have the conversation on, you're at a low tax bracket this year. Why don't we take the advantage of paying the tax on it now and, before you have another good year? And let's convert it so you can have some tax-free earnings in retirement.
Awesome. Yeah, I tend to agree. I think you've probably heard in multiple videos before saying that we are really big proponents of flexibility. And again, although the Roth conversion might not be right for everybody, that potentially, at least considering having multiple buckets of money, can be a very powerful thing. Nick, let me ask you this on a personal note. For being a business owner yourself, what would you say are some of the highs that you go through on a regular basis in working with your clients? And then, and what are some of the things that you would caution maybe other business owners to avoid throughout the year, just from a strategy standpoint?
So one of the things I like to do is I like to do a lot of information gathering. Where were you? Where are you currently? Where do you want to be? So this way we could put a strategy in place. And when the opportunity arises, we can start shifting gears tax-wise. Sometimes it's growth in a business, hiring, or maybe succession planning. You're thinking about selling a business or possibly acquiring another business and merging it into yours. So once you sit down, you do that fact-finding with your clients, you can actually get the information. And if you ask the right questions, there's a lot of opportunity for your accountant, your financial advisor, even your attorney to help your clients along that way. A lot of clients don't realize that they have an issue until they talk to you about it. And part of that is you got to have dialogue. You got to have them, feel comfortable and free to have that conversation with you.
Great, thank you. And another quick question here for you, as far as from a business planning standpoint. So something from the outside looking into the accounting industry, what I've noticed is that from my standpoint, it seems like there's a lot of consolidation, and might not be terribly easy to find a trustworthy accountant to help you along the way with your journey, whether, again, that being a business owner or somebody that has inherited wealth, or even just an individual in general. What would you say that you focus on with your clients that you think sets you apart and helps you rise above the rest?
So I think the number one thing is communication. So if you don't talk to your clients, talk to them on a regular basis, shoot an email. Every time a client sends me an email, I have a question for you. My response is, sure, give me a call. Because once you have them on the phone or you meet with them in person, the conversation opens up. If you stick to the email and then it's 10 emails later and something gets lost in translation. So having that conversation with them, a timely response, I found that even if I didn't have the answer on the spot, but I can let a client know, I'll call you back tomorrow at 4 o'clock, and I call it tomorrow at 4 o'clock, besides the credibility that you just created, they know they could depend on you for an answer.
Great. In finishing up here, is there any last information or any other tips that you would like to throw out to everybody as we embark on year end and finish up Q4 in the coming weeks?
Yeah, there's lots of different things we can do. The solar's one. If you're thinking about an electric car, also talk to your accountant, see if it qualifies. The rules are very different than they were a little over a year ago. Retirement plan contributions and so on. There's 529 plans that you can put some money away for your kids for the future. There are some limitations, but that money can grow tax-free if the money's used for college education. For people who want to transfer some wealth, They can gift a son, a daughter, grandson, grandchild. So lots of things to go over. Anybody's welcome to reach out. Once again, I'm here as a resource. Please let everyone feel comfortable.
Great. Nick, thank you very much. It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you all for watching.
Pleasure's all mine.
And thank you, and have an awesome day.
Awesome. Thank you.